MIR was the first orbital station in human history. Americans looked at the Soviet project with envy. Over the years, hundreds of astronauts from different countries have visited the station. A total of 23,000 experiments were conducted aboard MIR. In 2001, the station was gone. A huge space city with a rich history has been sunk into the Pacific Ocean. There were other ways to solve the station's problems, but the top brass decided to destroy MIR. In 1986, another rocket took off from Baikonur. Its crew were not quite ordinary cosmonauts. Leonid Kazim and Vladimir Solovyov were to become the first inhabitants of the newly completed orbital station. MIR embodied the dreams of the famous designer Tsiolkovsky. He believed that one day there would be not just a station in orbit, but a full-fledged city. The MIR station was the first to feature units for waste processing, cell hybridization, and drug manufacturing. In March 1986, the MIR station came to life. The project was conceived back in 1978. At that time, Soviet cosmonautics was booming. Huge amounts of money were invested in the development of the space city. The Americans, on the contrary, sponsored one-time projects, space shuttle missions. U.S. engineers did not believe to the last minute that an orbital station was a project that would pay off. In February 1986, after nearly a decade of construction, the first block of the station was delivered into orbit by launch vehicle. MIR opened for foreign astronauts in 1995. Until then, the spacecraft had been a closed science project. Over 6 years, 15 different delegations visited the station. Among the space guests were the Germans, the French, the British, the Austrians, and the Japanese. With the Americans, there was a special MIR project, the Space Shuttle. A total of 104 astronauts visited the station, 32 of whom went into open space. The capsules that arrived from MIR delivered 2 terabytes of scientific data to Earth. The total weight of the payload from the experiments was 5 tons. The station survived several accidents, including a fairly large one. In 1997, another Progress ship collided with a unit called Spectre. The transport ship took out the solar panels. The station lost about 40% of its power. The unit was never recovered. A depressurization occurred and the module was isolated. Despite the loss of the unit, the station continued to function. However, this did not save it from sinking in 2001. Flooding of the MIR orbital station. The president approved the decision that MIR was to be sunk in the ocean in 2001. So why did the pride of Soviet cosmonautics decide to destroy it? The official reason was full depletion of resources and low payback period. The MIR's equipment needed to be repaired. Huge funds were needed to carry it out. The main money from the operation of MIR came from foreign companies. International missions were well paid. But there was not enough money for repairs, only to keep the station alive. In 2001, Iran offered a deal. Foreign investors agreed to buy the station. MIR was planned to be used to house military facilities. In addition, under the contract, Russia was to train Iranian cosmonauts. However, the deal did not take place. Right before MIR was sunk, Russian scientists offered an alternative. They wanted to ground the famous station in the mountains of the Caucasian Ridge. Such a mission was considered dangerous. As a result, on March 23, 2001, the sentence was carried out. The MIR sinking operation itself is a unique event. To be precise, the station was not sunk, but burned above the Earth. To do this, Progress cargo ship was docked to MIR. Due to several switching of engines, the station received the last impulse. The ship pushed the space city out of orbit, and the MIR flew towards inevitable death. Most of the station burned up in the Earth's atmosphere. The wreckage fell into the Pacific Ocean. To this day, at a depth of 4 kilometers at the bottom of the ocean, fragments of a unique station, which worked in orbit for 15 years, rest. The flooding of MIR was followed by the whole world. 600 correspondents from Russian and international publications were admitted to the MCC. Ambassadors from 63 countries closely watched the destruction of the station. In March 2001, for the first time in human history, a space object of this magnitude was sunk. Some predicted that the event would turn into a disaster. Despite the negative predictions of skeptics, the sinking process caused neither destruction nor loss of life. At the time of sinking, MIR included 5 target modules. What was in the blocks, the wreckage of which now lies at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean? What did the first MIR space station consist of? The main part, the base module. It worked without accidents from the launch until it sank. The base module literally replaced a home for astronauts. Living quarters, dining, and restrooms were located here. The temperature throughout the station depended on the work of the block. From here, the astronauts made sure that MIR did not go off course. Even a small deviation from the orbital curve would lead to a terrible disaster. At the same time, the module was the heaviest, weighing 21 tons. 2 units called Quant and Quant 2 were intended for astrophysical research. Here there were sealed compartments with laboratory instruments. In addition, it was in Quanta that the hardware and equipment needed for spacewalks were stored. Crystal became the first industrial unit. Inside the module, semiconductors were made, biological waste was purified, medicines were made, and various proteins were grown. 5 years later, 2 modules for Earth studies were docked to MIR. From Spectra looked at the atmosphere of the planet and explored natural resources. The Nature module allowed to study the space around the station, including the effects of space on the human body. All of these uniquely designed units burned up in the dense layers of the atmosphere in 2001. The station exceeded its original lifespan by 10 years. At the time of its launch, MIR was scheduled to remain in space for 5 years. Then it would be replaced by the technically more advanced MIR 2 station. The plans were ruined by the difficult economic situation in the country. There was not enough money even for the scheduled launches of the newest shuttle Buran. For this reason, after the collapse of the USSR, all efforts were focused on maintaining the station in working order. Improvements were out of the question. In 2024, the burnt-out and sunken MIR is to be replaced by the National Orbital Space Station. The design will include scientific and scientific-technical modules, as well as a unique experimental transformable block with an elastic shell. Unlike all its predecessors, the National Station will revolve around the Moon rather than the Earth. The Russian spacecraft is expected to replace the International Space Station in the future. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Give it a thumbs up. Tell us interesting facts you know about the topic of this video. See you in new videos.